The 12 official UK Beatles albums have these unique, original, well-known and commonly accepted, by the band approved album covers. But the rest of the world was more imaginative and more creative when designing their album covers of the Beatles albums. Well, that's what they thought. Hello my Beatles friends, welcome back to another video. In this video I'd like to cover another topic that I wanted to do for a long time. And in this video I'd like to talk about the Beatles album covers from the world that simply should not exist. Some of them were bizarre choices, some of them were not meant to be, some of them were last minute choices. So I'd like to go into that and discuss the very strange and WTF Beatles covers. So right away, the very first one that I like to talk about is the famous or infamous Butcher cover. Well, actually I do not have the Butcher cover itself, so I'm going to show it to you from the rarities. And this was made by the Beatles in the 66, and that was a statement against Vietnam War or the industry butchering the Beatles albums in America and so on. The Beatles insisted that this cover will be released. They were asked several times if they really want it, and they said, yes, we want it as a cover. Soon after, of course, it was sent back to the factories, and the last minute choice was decided that this trunk cover will be pasted over. So this trunk cover was never meant to be an album. They never wanted to be an album cover, and that was just a last minute choice. So this album cover, if you look at it, it should never existed. It's just consequences of the mistake. So this one qualifies to the album that should not exist, and that created a very sought after collectible, a Butcher cover paste over. Now this one is not a paste over. I do have a paste over, but it's hidden on a shelf and I'm not gonna take it out right now. But this one, if you look at the V here on this area, there should be a V. That means you have a Butcher cover which was a paste over. The second one that I would like to talk about is something very bizarre and very strange. Although it's official, I will be talking only about two bootlegs actually. It's official, but it's a really head-scratching cover. I mean, why was it even made? We're talking about the Soviet issue from USSR, the album called A Taste of Honey. Now, this one actually has songs from the albums Please Please Me, With the Beatles, and Beatles for Sale. Now, the picture here is from 1966 from White Album. And growing up in Soviet Union, I know that these pictures were the only pictures available officially. Those pictures where you could buy them in a kiosk or everywhere with a calendar on the back. So that was the only available pictures officially in Soviet Union. I still have the original ones with the calendar up to 2000, from 85 to 2000. So just to show you what I mean, these are the original cards from Soviet Union, from my country, from Georgia, that it was still part of the Soviet Union. And these actually are the cardboard prints that you could buy in supermarket or in kiosk or convenience store or whatever. And these are cardboard prints. And if you look on the back, we have here a special calendar dating 91 to 2000, not 85, I made a mistake. And it says here, family name and father's name. Here's the phone number. And if you look, these are the months, these are the years, and it shows here which month looks how every year. It's very interesting, kind of strange calendar. But yeah, that's how it was in 2000, for example. That was September and November and so on. So these were the official Soviet Union cards that were sold in every supermarket. So I guess that explains the cover of A Taste of Honey. And what's most bizarre about it, that's the name of the album is A Taste of Honey, which is a Beatles cover song, not the Beatles original. And even more bizarre that it has some kind of a weird piece of honey on the back. So this is really strange cover that should not existed in the Beatles world. And if you ask me, I would have done a better job. The next album that also should not exist. The album cover, I mean. This is a bizarre cover from 1965 from GDR, which is East Germany. Now, in Eastern Germany, behind the Iron Curtain, they didn't have access to many Beatles pictures, so they took this one, cut the background, put it on a weird green background, and that's how they released it. 15 years later, they released the original picture. At least looks normal. It has nothing to do with the Beatles from the point of view of instruments, so this is the very bizarre and strange cover that, once again, if you ask me, I would have done a better job. Quite the contrary, actually. They released in 1973, they released this single Blue Album, which they did not use the original Blue Album cover, but they actually used this one. And actually, this kind of looks cool. Another one that is very strange how it was made, and another one, why does it even exist? It makes you wonder, couldn't they have used a normal picture? I mean, look at this. This is the greatest hits compilation from Turkey. What they did on yellow background, they took the Sgt. Pepper gatefold picture, cut it in two, and glued one part on the other. And on the back side, they took a front cover of Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane single, and the songs on this album are Please Please Me, I Feel Fine, So Standing There, down to Rubber Soul on side 1, and then Ballad of John and Yoko, Sgt. Pepper, Lucy, and so on, Revolution on side 2. So complete mix-up and very, very bizarre cover. Once again, I could have done a better job, but I'm tired of saying that already. Another one. Now, this one is really a mess. This is a rarity from Israel, but they released that in 1967, and this one contains the songs from the Tony Sheridan era. But at that time, when they were releasing it in 1967, the available video, the latest available video was Penny Lane video. So what they did, they just took stills from that video, glued it on the cover, and released Tony Sheridan material, which was pre-1962. Now this one is a really bizarre one. And why it even exists? Maybe for financial purposes? Who knows? But this one considers to be one of the rarest Israeli records. Speaking of Israel, we have another one. This is the Beatles' Greatest. Now, the original Beatles' Greatest was released with the Beatles for Sale back cover. This one was the original Beatles' Greatest in Europe. In Germany is a bit different, but still. But this one took it to another level completely. This is a reproduction of reproduction. And this is a drawing of some artist that it had in a book. So somebody saw it and just glued it on the front cover. Absolutely, I don't know. I personally don't like this cover. Now, if you look at the back cover, it's even worse. These are hand drawings of the Beatles faces, should be Beatles faces, but it was hand drawn by somebody else. So this cover is absolutely bizarre one, and I think it shouldn't exist. They should have kept the original European version of the Greatest Hits compilation. Next one. Vijay released in 1964 this album, which is called Introducing the Beatles, but soon they lost the rights to all those songs, and they had only limited time and limited songs to release. So in order to squeeze the most money out of it and enjoy the profit while they still could, they released the same album with the same track listing, with the same songs. They couldn't use any other songs because they didn't have rights, but they started to release them in a different cover. And they released this one. Now, if you compare the track listing of those two albums, they are absolutely identical, but they made this extra cover. Although this cover is kind of cool, but ask me, absolutely unnecessary. So this one is a cool one. They're introducing the Beatles in America, but the other ones are just unnecessary. Another one. This one is a drawing of a dollhouse kind of cover. This one, I believe, was rejected for the White Album, so they released it in 1980 on the Beatles Ballads. And they just stick here one little picture of the Beatles, but the rest has nothing to do with the Beatles. And to be honest, I don't really like this picture, kind of psychedelic doll kind of picture, but I really don't think that it fits on Beatles cover. Next one, from Czechoslovakia. This one looks more like a newspaper article or a scrapbook or something. They just took 4 pictures and glued them on a newspaper type, because these songs here are only covers. There is no original Lennon-McCartney composition here on this album, so that's why they did it. They have another compilation that has Lennon-McCartney songs on it, and it's a complete picture. But this one really looks odd. And here is 2 bootlegs. We have this Russian album, but if you look here closely, Lennon is barefoot and McCartney has shoes. This is a completely disastrous design, but somebody wanted to stand out. Now, there is another album, which is bootleg. I don't have it in my collection, but it's the only issue of Romania, and this is how it looks like. It's marked as an unofficial release, and it's impossible to buy it anywhere, but still, if you're releasing an album, at least make a decent cover, since it's an official and it's a bootleg, so why would you care? But look at this cover. This is an ugly cover, but it exists. I've never seen it in the flesh, otherwise I would have bought it just for this cover, but still, it is there. It's called Beatles One Mania, and it's a Romanian issue. And for the conclusion of this video, there is one other album that I want to talk about, and it's an official album. Last but not least, we all know that this is the famous cover of the Rubber Soul album. Now, this picture was taken in a garden, a normal picture, and then it was leaned forward, and that's why we have this diagonal and stretched effect. If you look at John's shoulder, you have a loose thread. In every country in the world, except Argentina and Mexico, they have brushed this loose thread. But in Argentina and Mexico, they decided not to do it. So this one actually should not exist as a version of loose thread on John's shoulder. But this one actually is just a, printing mistake, I would say. Okay, so that was my opinion on bizarre Beatles album covers that, in my opinion, should not exist, should never been made, but still they exist. There are many other covers that actually Beatles themselves didn't like. For example, this Help. John Lennon himself expressed that he didn't like this one because the Beatles are small in black and white, and they are order is reversed, and so on. Also, he did not like this Australian with the Beatles cover. Those covers were made intentionally, officially by the record label. But these albums that I just showed you were also official releases. Very strange, bizarre covers. Thank you very much for watching this short video, and I hope to see you next time. Please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, because more interesting content is coming. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye bye.